Elise Stefanik. Congressman Stefanik, welcome. Thank you. I just will lay out what I think people have a lot of confidence in you, given what you did on the first impeachment, given how you've handled yourself and comported yourself to take conference chair and what you've done as conference chair, I think, to add some stability. Just walk us through, what are your thoughts about this tonight, and what is your plan of how you're marshaling your troops and your information to kind of counter this?
Well, this is nothing more than a partisan witch hunt. It is Nancy Pelosi's illegitimate committee that has nothing to do about focusing on the facts, focusing on the truth. Its only purpose is to really have Democrats target Trump voters and Republican members of Congress. It's an illegitimate committee and really unprecedented, Steve, because for the first time in the history of the House, in the history of Congress, goes against 232 years of precedent. There were no Republican-appointed members. So any committee in Congress, both the majority and minority parties are able to nominate and appoint those members. And in this case, Nancy Pelosi shredded all precedent. So there are no Republican-appointed positions. Why does that matter? It means that unlike even impeachment hoax part 1, which we remember in the bunker of the basement conducted by Adam Schiff, at least you had Republican members like myself, Jim Jordan, and others to be able to cross-examine the witnesses, to look at all of the evidence. There is nothing related to this, no opportunity for Republicans to ask the tough questions. I also believe that this committee is part of a cover-up for Nancy Pelosi. The chair, the Democratic chair, Benny Thompson, said the only office that's off limits to the January 6th committee is Nancy Pelosi's office. She oversees security of the U.S. Capitol complex. There were warnings and intelligence, and as soon as our members started asking those critical questions, she pulled them from the committees, and I think what we will see this evening is a political circus and a desperate attempt for Democrats to change the narrative from the issues that actually matter to the American people.
So let me take that one at a time. One of the reasons I think you were so effective in the first impeachment and impressed the American people so much with your lawyerly skills and knowledge and just understanding of things is that you guys were on the committee, but you also had the evidence. You knew what they were putting forward because you had a minority position. You guys could go through it. Tonight, I mean, you're going to see it as the public sees it, and it's not even a hearing. It's going to be some multimedia. I actually know the producer from Hollywood of the documentary film. He's the son of a very famous Goldcrest. I think they own Goldcrest Film. He's a very famous documentary filmmaker, but he's a British filmmaker, and I don't think no one's seen his footage. So how do you do it tonight differently than you did it the first time when you could actually cross-examine, but you knew kind of what was coming at you, and you could kind of punch back? How are you guys going to handle this tonight when you're going to see it in real time as the nation sees it?
Well, we have very experienced members like Jim Jordan, like myself, like Leader McCarthy, who have gone through sort of the impeachment hoaxes part 1 and 2, where the Democrats really, yes, we saw the evidence. There was no evidence that proved any type of impeachable offenses, but we were able to rapid respond in those hearings. My plan is to make sure that our members are immediately setting the record straight. We will push back aggressively on edited and doctored evidence, which we've already seen. For example, when they showed certain texts earlier before these hearings, those texts were doctored. So we know that. They've changed the rules of this committee multiple times. We'll also call out the fact, Steve, that you said they hired a producer, a Hollywood producer, a former executive from ABC News, who is mostly known because he silenced victims of Jeff Epstein. He's paid for by taxpayers. They already have the book, the report from this Pelosi committee listed on Amazon. So that tells you everything you need to know. What it also tells you, and I'm a big believer that the American people are smart, is they're not having primetime hearings on the inflation crisis, on the border crisis, on the gas crisis, on the crime crisis, on the baby formula shortage. Not only are they not having primetime hearings on those subjects, they're having no hearings on those subjects. So this is just shameless attempt at creating a political circus to try to change the narrative, and we will push back aggressively. You'll see Republicans on the airwaves, but you'll also see the House Republican Conference, as the hearing is ongoing, pushing back, setting the record straight, and reminding folks that the only office that's off limits to this investigation is Nancy Pelosi's office. At her guidance, the Sergeant at Arms refused to comply with the request for information about communication between the potential threats, U.S. Capitol Police, and the Speaker's office because they were concerned with optics.
I just want to make sure people understand this then, because there's been some controversies. Some people are saying they don't want to pay any attention to it, and they shouldn't. We should talk about other things. Others saying you've got to correct the record. Your strategy right now, what this audience should look for, because I think later tonight, I believe you're going to be on Hannity, right, on Fox, but who's not going to cover it wall to wall. You're saying that you intend to have a team and have members out there that you're going to confront the misrepresentations, the smears that go after, because I think they're doing two. I think they go after MAGA and Trump supporters and Republican voters, and also obviously President Trump. So the strategy now, as you see it, you guys are going to push back and punch back on everything that you think is inaccurate, a smear, an edit, fake news, etc. Correct?
We'll push back, and we are going to set the record straight. That is our job. But it is also our job, most importantly, Steve, to talk about the issues that matter. This is very clear that Democrats have no agenda to solve the multiple crises that the American people are suffering through, whereas the Republicans have been focused like a laser. And I've particularly been ensuring that our members are disciplined, talking about those multiple crises. So we have to do both, and we will do both today. My hunch, though, Steve, is I think they're going to get very poor viewership numbers this evening because the American people are tuning this out. I was just home in my district during district work period for 2 weeks. Not a single constituent, not a single voter asked me about the January 6th, Pelosi witch hunt. What they did ask me about were the gas prices. They asked me about the historic inflation when they go to the grocery store. They asked me why baby formula is getting rationed at stores. So those are the issues that matter. We will set the record straight, but we're also going to make sure that we are continuing to lead on all those really, really challenging situations that every American is facing.
One other thing I want to bring up before you go is go back to Pelosi. You know, there's all this discussion that she would step down or resign after she wins her seat this coming November. How are you going to hold her accountable? There's obviously something so glaring about this, that since the speaker is so all-powerful at the Capitol, how did this all happen? And about the footage she's holding back, the 14,000 hours, there's so many, there's literally thousands of questions that you could ask her. So, Chairman Stefanik, how do you intend to hold her accountable?
Well, importantly, we do have Republicans that were, again, pulled from the committee. They are conducting an investigation focused on the facts. And as my colleagues have said, the breadcrumbs lead directly to Speaker Pelosi's office. The Democrats and Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, their top allies, top puppets, are engaging in a cover-up to protect Speaker Pelosi. Speaker Pelosi, during her speakership, she has shredded all precedent constitutionally in terms of the role of the speaker. It has been authoritarian in how she's conducted her, failed leadership over the House. She's going to be held accountable this November when she loses that speaker's gavel, when we have a historic class of newly elected Republican members. But I'll tell you, they've shredded a lot of precedent, Steve, whether it's subpoenaing members, whether it's kicking them off committees. They have broken this institution. I can tell you, for example, Adam Schiff will not sit on the House Select Intelligence Committee in a Republican majority. Neither will Eric Swalwell. And there are a number of members that are going to face significant consequences. And the person that has broken this institution is Nancy Pelosi. But what Republicans are also going to do is we're going to, again, address these issues, securing the border, making sure we have strong legislation to do that, to return to the effective Trump-era border policies, making sure that we are reining in our spending to, again, address this runaway inflation crisis because of the radical tax and spend policies. So we have a lot of cleaning up to do, but certainly, getting back to a Capitol that is the people's house, getting rid of all these authoritarian mandates that Nancy Pelosi has put into place.
People don't realize, I think, in our broader audience, the attacks that you're under constantly, and the personal has gotten quite vicious and quite personal. Tell us about that.
Well, it's not my first time being attacked, Steve. I was smeared by Hollywood, by Democrats, by the entire radical far-left ecosystem during impeachment part 1. But what they didn't realize is I have a backbone of steel, and I will always stand up for the Constitution. I will always stand up for my constituents and my values. And the same goes through right now. I have been attacked. My family has been smeared. The media has been doing the Democrats' bidding. That's why it's so important that there are additional news outlets out there so people can get the truth out. What I've done is I've stood strong, and I will tell you, my constituents notice those attacks. The scam pact that I won't even mention their name, but they are one of the biggest scam packs in terms of taking people's money and then attacking Republicans. They're running vicious ads in my district, and it is energizing my voters. Republicans, Democrats. I was just at a barbecue this past weekend, and I will tell you, it was a Republican voter and a Democrat voter. They said they had never seen as vicious of a TV ad, and it made them more likely to vote for me because I was being attacked by those leftists who are funded by Hollywood.
Last question. You're a new mother, and you've also, I think, gone out of your way to try to get women, particularly young women, involved in politics and particularly to run for office. It's been one of your, I think, leading efforts. It's paying off so strongly. This formula situation, I think one of the things I find most disturbing about it is the lies and misrepresentations and no sense of urgency from this administration. It's quite frankly, it's left me gobsmacked. The incompetence, the malfeasance, and just this lack of actually getting on top of the problem. I know this is personal to you, so what are your thoughts about this?
This has been an area where I've been proud to lead the House Republicans. So first of all, we knew this was going to be a challenge. I sent a letter to the FDA and the Biden administration back much earlier in this year, in February of this year, when the decision to close the Abbott manufacturing and production facility down. FDA didn't even respond until May of this year. Why? Because FDA was not doing their job, and it was sheer incompetence from the Biden administration. It was only when I stood on the Capitol steps with my colleagues and House Republicans blasted President Biden for failing to even mention the formula shortage across the country. He had to scramble, and you know how big of a deal this is, Steve, to change his schedule that day and get on the phone with formula manufacturers. And what have they done? They're importing goat's milk from Australia rather than addressing the FDA issue. And we also found out this past week that the FDA not only knew it was going to be an issue in February, but the tail end of last year, they knew there were going to be shortages. So I will tell you, as a new mother, there is nothing more harrowing than having to scramble to feed your baby. And in my district, just this past, we were working for Memorial Day weekend, and I had a number of ceremonies all over my district. So I went to the store to purchase about 4 to 5 days of formula for my son, Sam, and it was rationed at the store. And I thought, this is the United States of America. Working moms, working dads, every family is going through this crisis right now. Shame on Joe Biden and shame on Nancy Pelosi, who their committees didn't even want to focus on this, host a hearing. They said this wasn't a real issue. She put on a messaging bill on the floor. She waltzed on the floor, voted on it. That bill is going nowhere. My bill actually addresses the incompetence of the FDA. It also addresses and makes sure that we have more formula producers domestically, because that's really important as well. And I'm very proud of the Abbott CEO, who has spoken out and blown the whistle about how the FDA mismanaged this. But this is an example that, yes, this impacts every family, but to have, as a young mother, I'm the newest mom in Congress by a long shot, and to be able to speak from my personal experience about what my constituents and the American people are going through, that means Republicans are focused on issues that matter.
You know, Chairman, I guarantee you, if you had a hearing tonight on national TV, on broadcast, and you chaired it and just walked through the facts, so the American people would get the facts on the formula situation, it would do 5X as far as audience goes of the 6th January. This is the type of thing that parents, I mean, I'm talking to young mothers, and we're getting a lot of information, Moms for America. People are in panic mode over this. And grandparents are calling me that are having to take their spare time away from work to help their daughters and daughters-in-law. I mean, this is a major crisis that the administration just kind of discounts and dismisses behind some, you know, the White House press secretary stands up there, and there still seems to be no sense of urgency. I think the audience really appreciates the fact that you're getting on top of it. Well, everybody, I know you've got to get off and get ready for tonight. So Godspeed, and everybody's got your back. And if the vicious attacks means you're over the target, and they're coming for you because they understand that you're you're pure MAGA, and you've got the president's back, and you're one of the rising leaders in this country.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'll tell you, my constituents say, keep going. We support you.
Congressman Stefanik, thank you very much.